welcome to episode number 103 of the Cheesesteaks and Controllers podcast, presented by Fox, PHL The Gambler, 102.5 FM, 1480 AM, and iHeart Radio. This is Jason Finelli, your esports and gaming insider, coming at you after a fantastic weekend at Too Many Games Expo. They really put on a great show this year. There was a ton of stuff to do, a lot of people to meet. Tico's concerts went off without a hitch. Very much thank him and his father, who was his manager, for putting everything together. If you were out there, I hope you had a great time. Let me know your stories at Big Man Finelli on Twitter. If you're listening for the first time after that convention, I should say, hello, nice to meet you, and I hope that you enjoy what you hear right now in this episode. Interesting episode this week as well. Following the Tico interview from last week, I have a 2-segment interview this time with the CEO of Gamesquare, Justin Kenna, who is the former CFO of FaZe Clan, now runs Complexity Gaming, which has the Complexity Stars label underneath it, which is athletes and celebrities who want to come in and start representing the brand. They have a bunch of athletes at the moment. J.R. Smith, the basketball player, is one of them. Max Holloway, the UFC fighter, who actually fights this weekend, is another. In fact, Justin took this interview with me from his room in Las Vegas. So I hope he is staying safe. We recorded this earlier in the week. I hope he's feeling okay. He doesn't have too much of a headache going into the weekend and the big fights. But before we get into that, let's get into the usual thing that we start our podcast with, the 6 in 60 seconds. The Philadelphia Fusion lose via reverse sweep to the LA Valiant, then lose to the Chengdu Hunters 3-1, beginning the Overwatch League's midseason madness split 0-2 with a -3 map differential. Winners from the CEO 2022 fighting game tournament over the weekend include IDOM in Street Fighter V, Jonathan Tene in Guilty Gear Strive, and Anakin in Tekken 7, among others. Multiple VPs from Enthusiast Gaming, which owns the esports team Luminosity, have asked the CEO to step down, the Washington Post reports. Elsewhere, a Nintendo Direct Mini Partner Showcase revealed Mario & Rabbids Sparks of Hope is coming October 20th, a brand new Mega Man Battle Network Legacy Collection for 2023, and much more. Developer Sabotage Studio has announced that Sea of Stars, the retro-style RPG prequel to The Messenger, has been delayed to 2023. Messenger's great, by the way, you should play that. And finally, the free PlayStation Plus games for July have been revealed, and the list includes Crash Bandicoot 4, It's About Time, the Dark Pictures anthology Man of Medan, and Arcade Geddon. Those are your 6 in 60 seconds. Yes, folks, those were your 6 in 60 seconds for the week. Nintendo Direct dropping a partner mini, not a whole lot going on there. A lot of things we already knew, but still some decent news, especially with the release date of Mario & Rabbids Sparks of Hope. But first, we have our first interview of the show here. And when you talk about esports, one of the bigger names certainly rising right now is Complexity. Complexity Gaming and Gamesquare are starting a brand new, or not starting a brand new initiative, but they have a new initiative, Complexity Stars, bringing in big time celebrities, plus their own Complexity Gaming teams as well. And joining me now is the CEO of Gamesquare, who owns Complexity. I want to make sure I get that right. That's Justin Kenna. Justin, how are you today?
Good, Jason. How you doing?
Doing well. Glad to have you here today. It seems you are in Vegas getting ready for the UFC fights this weekend. Max Holloway, one of your Complexity stars right now, staying out of trouble?
Yeah, absolutely. It's pretty hot out here, but we got a bit of time with Max on Sunday, which was good. He's raring to go, but fight week and the fighters can get a little bit irritable. They've got to make weight, so we had to make sure that we're keeping lunch well away from him. But he's ready to go, and it should be in a really exciting card on Saturday.
Now, is this your first time going to a fight night since you started Complexity and you've started bringing in UFC fighters under your label?
No, I've been lucky enough to get to a few of them. We actually have some pretty close links with the UFC.
Okay.
Been working with them on a couple of different projects, and pretty closely linked there. I've been to a couple of Connor fights, which are always entertaining, but was lucky enough to actually go to Sean O'Malley's last fight.
That's cool.
That was sort of the first fight that I'd been to since we'd signed him to Complexity Stars, and I've never actually seen Max fight live. So we get both of them on the same card. on Saturday night, which will jam-packed card and should be really exciting.
That's very exciting. So very cool. So a little bit about you now and your background. In my research, I saw you began your career in movies and TV, and then you made the pivot to esports. Now, when I'm thinking about that career change, I would think it would be the opposite. Someone would come up big in esports or content creation and then switch to movies and television. What made you want to come into the esports and content side?
Yeah, for sure. So I actually started out, originally sort of accounting, finance background, not quite as exciting,
Okay.
but moved over to the States. I'm obviously Australian. Moved over to the States about 7 years ago, and prior to moving into the gaming space, was running finance and strategy for Madison and Vine, who were, as you said, more in the TV space, snackable content, your music videos for really big artists, and a lot of TV ads and so forth. And really cool space, was a cool company and learned a lot. It's really interesting. I actually wasn't looking to move at the time when I actually did. I was introduced by a friend to the guys at FaZe Clan. For many of your listeners, I'm sure they'll know who FaZe Clan is. The largest sort of gaming org by audience size by a really long way. I actually started there probably about five years ago now, which, the evolution of the space in the last 5 years, as I'm sure everyone has seen, has
been incredible.
Has really been incredible. Yeah. So was introduced to those guys, wasn't looking to actually make a change at the time. Went over, chatted with them, and just started really doing a lot of research on the space and seeing, just these enormous audience numbers that were continuing to grow. And specifically at FaZe, I mean, it was a really interesting opportunity, right? Because when you look at most businesses, you go in and you build a business and then you try to kind of build the brand that you can then monetize. And this was sort of the opposite. They had a brand and this huge audience, and really it was about backfilling that and building a real business around it. So went over, met the guys at FaZe Clan, sort of 8 people working out of a house at the time. Wow. Obviously, have publicly announced that they'll be doing a SPAC deal imminently and going public. So started at FaZe Clan, with 8 people working out of a house doing roughly $2 million in revenue, and obviously grew that dramatically over the 3 years that I was there as CFO. There's actually a huge amount of crossover from the music and movie and more sort of traditional forms of entertainment in terms of real content in the space. There was actually a lot of crossover, and especially early days at FaZe. I mean, FaZe was really a gaming brand built out of content that became an esports org later, which many people don't realize. But saw the opportunity, came over, and the last 5 years have been an incredible learning curve in terms of this space and the evolution of it, the growth of this space being gaming and esports in general. And I really think that we're very early days to where this is going. I think this is ground floor to level 1 of a very large high rise. So really exciting times. Really glad that I did make that jump over, and that those days at FaZe Clan really helped forge what we're building here at Gamesquare today.
Sure. Now, getting into a little bit of what you did at FaZe Clan. When I look at FaZe Clan's roster, obviously they have signed some big celebrity names too. Snoop Dogg comes to mind, and a few other like Bronny James. But they include their celebrities in the mix with their other roster. If I go to FaZe, I click roster, I see everybody in one spot. You have made a point to make your own separate label, Complexity Stars, for the celebrity content creators. Do you think that's important for not only the celebrities to have that extra moniker or that extra label to say that they're a big deal coming in, but also for your other content creators that they know that they're a part of the core Complexity team? Like, what was the strategy behind making that level of Complexity Stars?
Yeah, I do for sure. So firstly, I think, FaZe has been a real pioneer in this space, in this kind of, sitting at this new intersection of pop culture and, this kind of real new form of entertainment, right? Whether it's what they've done with merch and crossover in with streetwear brands, whether it's a crossover in with athletes and so forth. And I'm really proud of what we did at FaZe with a lot of that, and really paving the way when it comes to large commercial deals in the space. And I think it's really helped other orgs, grow and benefit from that. What we've done a little differently, as you mentioned, is Complexity Stars actually the first ever dedicated athlete and celebrity gaming division. And I think it was really important to actually differentiate the two. Our athletes, and we actually just signed the Lost Kings, who are our first music announcement, who played at Coachella earlier this year. We've got them actually flying out to Vegas to compete in the Complexity Stars tournament on Thursday with Tim the Tap Man and a few others live from Vegas.
That's cool.
Which is super exciting. But, getting back to it, our Complexity Stars are signed to talent agreements. However, they are slightly different to those of, our core Complexity talent. I think the biggest differentiator is it's not their primary source of income, right? So
sure. Okay.
We don't want to make agreements that are onerous in terms of deliverables. And, they're onerous to us in terms of a fixed salary, because with a fixed salary, like other gamers or streamers might demand, with that comes deliverables and expectations. And I think the best thing about Complexity Stars is this is completely additive. It's a really additive program to both our stars and to Complexity as a brand. So by not putting a huge amount of deliverables on these guys and rev sharing in all of these, programs and projects that we do, I think what it does is it continues to promote, because I think what people miss with this is these are not 9 celebrities that we're trying to take their audience and their brand and fit into gaming. These are 9 celebrities that are hardcore gamers. They create content, they stream, they love this space. Yeah. And what we're doing is we're giving them credibility in the space. We're allowing them to grow audience, and we're giving them another avenue to monetize.
Sure.
So this is something that may have previously been a hobby, that now they have an opportunity to monetize. I can tell you, I was actually in Toronto last week with Leonard Fournette. Lenny actually flew out and spoke with me at the Collision Conference about this intersection of traditional sports and gaming and esports. And I mean, that's another example of the passion, right? Lenny flew out to Toronto to speak on this. We have Max Holloway taking time in the middle of fight week to spend time with us and promote a merchandise drop. We have access. We have a bunch of our athletes and stars flying in to participate in a tournament with Tim the Tap Man, right? Where you start to integrate in some of Tim's audience and fans who, they may not be NFL fans or UFC fans, but all of a sudden they become a Sean O'Malley fan or a Leonard Fournette fan. And so I think it's really additive both ways. It helps our athletes and our stars grow audience, gives them opportunities in space, whether it's live tournaments, events, endemic type brand deals. I think what's important is within the Gamesquare family, we have a really nice, diverse group of companies, especially on the digital media and agency side, that actually integrate in our gamers and streamers to brand opportunities, as well as our athletes. So these are the types of deals that, traditional athletes may not be getting otherwise. So we see this as being really additive to both sides. And I think, making that sort of distinct, division that is specific to these athletes makes a lot of sense, because you do have to be a little more flexible. Mm-hmm. Some of these athletes have existing sponsors that you have to be flexible around. You've got to be flexible around their training schedules and just the understanding that this isn't their primary source of income. But I tell you what, for some of them, they're starting to make really meaningful income and revenue from it. And it's something that they can build and grow far beyond their playing years. So
now I imagine that, like you were saying, you have to fit into their schedules. This week is a perfect example. Max is getting ready for a big fight. He's one of your guys. You kind of have to work around his training schedule. He has to make weight. He has to be ready. So that does there. I do see the difficulty there, but I imagine at the same time, when it's over and it's done with, and he's able to give more of his attention to this, he's all in, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's an interesting one, because fight week, I think, for the fighters, the week of their fight, they have a lot of downtime. And so Sean O'Malley and Max both, they both game a lot. So it's hard in terms of appearances, especially, with COVID protocols and things like that,
Yep.
they can't be around too many people the week of the fight, but they are gaming, and there's ways for us to kind of capture content and really interesting pieces there that we can use later. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're already talking with Max about some different content pieces later in the year, brand deals and opportunities. Actually, speaking with me at another conference later in the year. So we have a full kind of schedule and a program and infrastructure that we're building out within Complexity Stars. So there'll be a set calendar of a tournament per quarter that
Cool.
we'll invite the stars to participate in. But there's lots of offshoots from that, right? We were able to do a J.R. Smith tournament recently, and
Cool.
the different stars play in different games, and we get lots of different requests. So absolutely, and we're excited to bring along a bunch of our talent Saturday night after the fight to kind of let them interact and meet Max and spend some time with him. And I think it's a big win-win. It's really cool, actually. I was with Ben Simmons a few years ago, and we were going up to the FaZe house, and Ben had been playing in the NBA for a couple of years. Obviously, a really really big guy in stature, and I was taking him up to the FaZe house to meet FaZe High Sky, who I believe at the time was about 14 years old, one of the best Fortnite players in the world. And Ben was nervous to go up and meet FaZe High Sky. It's really funny. I think a lot of people kind of think, oh wow, these gamers get to hang out with these athletes, how cool. But the reverse is true, right? For these athletes to have the opportunity to game with a Cloaksy or Barker Bros or Tim the Tapman,
Yep.
gives them a huge amount of credibility in this space. And these are streamers and guys and girls that they're watching game every day. So they're super excited by it.
So this being a Philadelphia-based podcast, I believe there's going to be a lot of mileage in that Ben Simmons angle. Coming up after the break, we'll have more with Justin Kenna right here on Cheesesteaks and Controllers. Stick around. Welcome back to Cheesesteaks and Controllers, episode number 103. Going to move right along into the second half of our interview with Gamesquare CEO Justin Kenna, the former CFO of FaZe Clan. Enjoy. I had an interesting thought about the Complexity Stars angle. So obviously you're bringing in athletes and musicians, as you said, where it's not their mainstream. But for someone who's already in your core talent, if one of them were to explode, like if Tim the Tatman one day got even bigger and started getting more, for lack of a better term, mainstream opportunities, could he then graduate to become a Complexity star, or would you then keep him in the core Complexity talent? Like, is there a time where you might have to consider, maybe he would be better in the stars portfolio, or he you know what I'm saying? Like, where is that ever, you think, a possibility?
Yeah, I mean, I think Tim's a bit of an anomaly in general, right? He's a huge celebrity in his own right, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like you graduate into stars. I think there's just a differentiation in the fact that, again, I kind of go back to the fact that, Tim, as much as he makes a lot of money out of brand deals and other opportunities, he's a gamer, right? That's his primary source of income. Whereas Lenny Fournette's absolutely a gamer. He loves it. We were about to get called on a stage. We had 1,000 people waiting for us live at this event in Toronto, and he's playing Candy Crush on his mobile phone as he's about to get called out. Like, he's a dead set gamer. But I'd go back to that differentiating factor, right, is that it's not their primary source of income. So they're different divisions within Complexity. It's not we aspire to get to this level, because a lot of our streamers, and not just Tim, are celebrities in their own right. And I actually go back to this story quite often. Early on at FaZe Clan, and I was still really navigating and learning a lot about the space. I went out to lunch with FaZe Banks and Juju Smith-Schuster, and Juju really is, again, sort of going back to kind of FaZe being a pioneer in the space. Juju's really a pioneer in the space in terms of athletes in gaming, and really kind of carving out content opportunities and brand deals outside of just that traditional sports avenue.
Mm-hmm.
He was on the front page of Sports Illustrated as a gamer, right? Which is pretty crazy. So
that is crazy.
Early on, he was he's got his own org now, Team Diverge, and doing some really cool things there. But early on, he was linked with FaZe, and I got to spend a bit of time with Juju, and went out to lunch with Juju and Banks, and I'd watched Juju at USC, and I'm a big football fan myself. And it was really interesting to see. And Juju was definitely recognizing people who come up and ask for a photo or an autograph or something like that. But FaZe Banks was mobbed like crazy. And it was this sort of wow moment for me that like, this is the next generation of celebrity. And I think there's sort of a few factors to it, right? One is you might be a huge LeBron James fan, but you go to a Laker game and you watch him or you see him interview, but you don't really have a chance to engage with him.
Right.
And if you're a big Tim the Tatman fan, you go watch his stream every day, comment, donate money. You can engage. So not only are you watching your star, but you're engaging with them. I think that's so extremely powerful. And I think there's this other wave of this kind of, I think Jimmy Iovine described, this FaZe pop-up that we did in New York as the new form of Beatlemania. And I think a little bit of that hysteria comes back to, if you look at, the way we consume media now and all of these reality TV shows and the Kardashians and how we need to know everything about everyone. Mm-hmm. I think there's a little bit about that with these YouTubers and gamers and streamers that, Tim's playing, he's streaming all week to basically, each day to a packed house and I was explaining to an investor this when we were at a Cowboys game. You got Dak Prescott there at quarterback, but Tim the Tatman's effectively streaming to, a full AT&T stadium most days.
That's true.
Right? Which is really crazy. And these fans, they're engaged and they feel like they know him. So this hysteria around fandom is a whole nother level. So and when I was at lunch with Banks and Juju, it was a real eye-opener for me. Mm-hmm. These guys are this next wave of celebrity, and they are so powerful with these fans that are so engaged. And that's really when you talk about kind of monetizing this space from a brand perspective, that's so incredibly powerful, right? This kind of 13 to 21-year-old demographic. 13 to 31-year-old demographic, high disposable income. That's really the age bracket the brands have been trying to reach for years. And, that is this audience.
Yeah. Fandom, of course, that's its own double-edged sword too, because it can be a wonderful thing or it can be a very scary thing, depending on the kind of fans that, have you seen any of the darker side of fandom in your time? Like people who are maybe a little too, what's the word I'm looking for? Like felt a little too familiar, like they connected a little too much with the person that they're watching on Twitch.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard different horror stories. I mean, to be honest, I've been really lucky in kind of seeing this evolution firsthand. I mean, I kind of mentioned it then with Jimmy Iovine's quote. One I would go back to in terms of like a huge eye-opening moment for me in the space with fans was the Fortnite World Cup in New York.
Yes, that was crazy.
Years ago, and we did this FaZe pop-up, and I was riding on there was two kind of Sprinter vans that we took into this pop-up, and we'd been pre-warned a little bit because there were kids that were lined up and, sleeping for a couple of nights to be,
wow.
They closed down 2 blocks in New York City, and it was just crazy and incredible. And these fans are so passionate. But no, look, I haven't seen any horror stories firsthand. I mean, I need to kind of talk to Tim and Cloaksy. I'm sure, Ninja and others of that stature, but, I'm sure would have horror stories. But, I'll tell you right now, after we signed Tim, we did a kind of merch pop-up, had him live at the Star in Frisco, Texas. And cool. We had about 1,000 kids rock up to meet him and get autographs and hang out. And Tim was sort of meant to do a meet and greet for an hour, as I'm sure summer in Frisco, Texas, pretty hot. So
yeah,
he stood out there all day and he met every single fan, took photos, signed autographs, and it was really cool to see. And I think that's important to us at Complexity and at Gamesquare in general is not only are we trying to connect brands and fans, and obviously a great way of doing that is through audiencing our talent, but we really want to build it with the right people. And,
sure.
I've never seen any of our talent, turn down a chance to talk to fans or do an autograph or spend a little bit of extra time. So overall, I think, maybe I've been shielded a little bit, but I've definitely been lucky enough to see, a hell of a lot more positive than negative in that space. But one thing I would say is, I've had this conversation with, a couple of our female talent, especially some of our younger talent, is, the internet can be a pretty tough place at times. And, to anybody out there who's, a bit of a keyboard warrior or sending these types of comments, like, I would have a really good think about whether you would say that to the person's face or not. And, really start to think about, how you could be affecting, other people. I know somebody like a Tim is, now he's more of a seasoned veteran. So I'm sure, comments or things on the internet, they brush off him pretty easily. But,
yeah,
I do know for sure that it affects some of our younger talent. Absolutely. And there's some pretty horrible things that are said on the internet, and, mental health is really important to us as an organization. And so that's sort of one area that, I think is, we try to do the best job we can to give, our talent support and education and training in these areas. But that's definitely an area that we're cognizant of for sure.
Sure. Yeah. That's really all you can do. You just brief your talent as much as you can. It's unfortunately inevitable, but as long as you can prepare them for it and tell them how to mitigate it, there's really not a whole lot else you can do, I suppose, unless you shut off the entire internet and make everybody sign in with their real names, but that's never going to happen. So my last question for you, just to get off a little lighter topic here, just the future of the industry in general, esports, content creation, the space that you're in right now, where would you like it to be in 5, 6, 7 years? Obviously, the pandemic affected everybody. I personally feel like esports sort of dropped the ball in the pandemic era. Like, they had a really opportunity to blossom and become, because everybody was at home. Like, even pro sports teams were doing, like, MLB The Show, Major League Baseball, EMLS was getting big at the time, but I still feel like they didn't quite grasp the opportunity the way they should have. A, would you agree with that? And B, where do you see it going now in the post-pandemic era?
Yeah. So, I mean, a lot to unpack there.
Yes.
I think, COVID was an interesting time for gaming and esports in general. So I think most people outside of the industry look in and think, one of the industries that was a big winner at the time, and definitely in certain areas it was, but
Sure.
in others it wasn't. And what I mean by that is, if you're a publisher, you're making the games, or if you're a merchant consumer products business in a space where you're making controllers or whatever it might be, you would have done extremely well, right? Because as you said, there was a lot of people at home playing video games. The part that I think, hurt the industry a little bit, and I don't think hurt it in the long run, because I think we're already starting to see it being made up, is that there was, a lot of momentum in terms of live events in the space. And
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever been to a live esports event, but I tell you what, it's one of the most entertaining things you can ever do.
Yeah, man. I love it.
And we talked about the Fortnite World Cup. I mean, off the back of that, you're selling out Flushing Meadows, and, there's this huge prize pools, and COVID obviously put a halt to that. So I think a lot of esports orgs had to pivot because, their teams couldn't fly. They couldn't compete. There wasn't prize pools, and money went away in that regard. And I think, we'd already seen this evolution of Fortnite and, the growth of Twitch, and these huge content creators and streamers that are making as much money from the bedroom as they are traveling the world competing in tournaments. So we've kind of seen this evolution a little bit of the growth of streaming, throughout COVID. I think one area that was a real benefit was kind of to mainstream media, right? You look at ESPN and other mainstream media sources that, at a certain point in time, there was no live sport on. And, the only thing that was going on were these online esports tournaments. And you definitely saw the growth of celebrities and athletes and others, picking up a controller again and getting back into gaming and esports and finding a passion. So there were some benefits there. I think there were some benefits we definitely saw at FaZe. I mean, I was still at FaZe at the start of COVID, and actually moved into growing Gamesquare before the end of it. But one thing I'd say at FaZe that we definitely saw was some of these more traditional brands that had previously been a little slow to move into the space starting to dip their toe in the water. And those brands have now become brands for life. So whether that's reallocating, some marketing spend and budget from a traditional sporting team and allocating that to an esports org, we definitely saw some brand dollars come over, McDonald's, Verizon, some others that I think, are now really heavily investing in the space. So I think that was a big win during the pandemic. In terms of moving forward, I mean, within gaming, there's so much to unpack. We wouldn't have enough time in this podcast to go through it, but looking at the evolution of Web3 and pay to play and crypto and blockchain and how that affects the future of gaming will be interesting. But from a pure esports perspective, which I think is your question, where I'd like to see it go and where I think it is already going is, 5 years ago, there's all this talk about the Wild West and, esports orgs are burning a huge amount of cash and it's not sustainable and so on and so forth. And you saw this kind of evolution of these franchise leagues. But to get into these franchise leagues, you have to pay 20, 30 million bucks and your return on investment is this kind of 10-year path. And then you've got to do this risk assessment around who's to say this game is going to be relevant or cool or even being watched in 10 years' time.
That's true.
So it's a really interesting space. So us at Complexity, we've been quite game agnostic. We're not in any closed leagues. I think the closest we would have from an infrastructure standpoint is our Counter-Strike team. But I think it's really interesting. And I think we're already starting to see, what I would say as some of the learnings from things like the Overwatch League. And I think Riot are really going about it the right way. I'm not sure how up to speed you or your listeners are, but the new Valorant process that they've gone with to have different orgs pitch and work much closer with the publisher to share in the revenue and share in the success. I think that's what we're going to start to see is publishers working a lot closer with the orgs, a lot closer with the talent, less of these, enormous capital outlays to get into these leagues and, better rev sharing opportunities around brands, around marketing, around getting eyeballs to the game. And I think it's a win-win, right? Like, as a publisher of a game, you might be running a league and you get this big influx of capital, but the only way you grow is by growing those communities, right? And the Counter-Strike community is different to the Overwatch community, which is different to the Call of Duty community, which is what makes this space so interesting and so powerful when, you are positioning yourself to connect brands with it because of that fragmented nature. What I would say is, for the future of these games and these publishers, they need to connect closer to community. And the best way to do that is building really strong relationships with Complexity, with FaZe Clan, with TSM, with Team Liquid, with 100 Thieves. And I think we're starting to see that. And I think we will, right? And that is, getting rid of this Wild West nature, having, salary caps introduced, more standardized rev sharing, prize pools, and so forth to make it actually sustainable for these orgs to really invest in the future of those specific games. Because we are seeing, more of these orgs that are agnostic when it comes to esports. They're growing out their content creators and streamers. They're doing lifestyle content like a FaZe, like 100 Thieves. But for the future of esports, you need these teams and orgs doubling down on esports and working closely with the publisher. So I think Riot's going about it the right way. I think we'll see a lot more of that. The publisher working with the orgs to really, produce a quality product overall for fans to enjoy and engage with.
Cool. Yeah, I could definitely see that. I have heard about that Riot Partner Program, so I'm glad to get your insight on that from your side. Obviously, from the media side, I don't get that much of a glimpse at that, but it does sound like it's definitely a lot less archaic, at least, than the
Absolutely.
old franchise model that the other leagues were doing. So yeah, if that's what can grow the industry, I am all about it. Anything that can bring me back to those live events, like you said earlier. Overwatch League Grand Finals here in Philly in 2019 was amazing. I've been to Evo a couple times out there in Vegas. Love Evo. But yeah, so Justin, just wanted to say thank you very much. You got to get back to your stuff. You got a lot of things going on with Gamesquare, Complexity, and you got a fight to go to this Saturday night. Justin Kenna, CEO of Gamesquare, Complexity Gaming, Complexity Stars. Check them out. Thank you so much for your time, and good luck this weekend.
Thanks, Jason. Appreciate it.
Coming up after the break, we take a look back at the first half of 2022 because this episode launched on July 1st, and that means we are in the second half of the year. Oh boy, stick around. All right, welcome back to Cheese Sticks and Controllers, episode number 103. A big thank you to Justin Kenna, CEO of Gamesquare, for sitting with me and talking about Luminosity. That was in the news. Complexity and Complexity Stars and everything that he's doing with his brand over there. Love to see new names in the esports scene. I know Complexity's been around for a while, but it sounds like this new direction, at least this refreshed direction, is very, very good for them. Always love seeing that. I hope to see them soon competing for some championships in some games. I know he said CSGO is their big game, but they have a lot in their portfolio. If you go to their website, they play a lot of games. So hopefully we'll be seeing some success stories for Complexity soon. And thank you once again to Justin for coming on today. But now we're going to look ahead. We're going to look ahead to the rest of the year and look back at the year so far because, believe it or not, we are already at the halfway point of 2022, July 1st, the 7th month. There are 12 months, which means we have completed 6 months of 2022. So I figured we'd go back and look at the things that, made the most impact in the gaming industry so far as events are concerned and releases are concerned. I can already hear you talking about a specific release, and yes, we will get to that, don't worry. But yes, there are things I would like to talk about that happened this year. Some of it you'll forget even happened this year. But so let's start with the releases, right? Because obviously that's what everybody who's listening to this is thinking about right now. OpenCritic.com, that's what I use for my aggregation when I'm looking at scores and stuff like that, because they are on... they are the ones that power Fantasy Critic. If you've never played Fantasy Critic, I highly suggest you do that. Go back to our episodes in December to find out more about those. But I use this for my score aggregation, and I figured I would go through the list and look at their top 40, where we sit right now. If I've heard of the games, great. If not, I'll add them to the list of things to check out, because obviously they're very good. Some things are a little lower than I expected. Some things are a little higher than I expected, but we'll get into all that right now. On the list. Number 40 is Dungeons of Dreadrock. Definitely haven't heard of that one. Came out March 14th, currently at an 82 average, so I'll check that out. Also at 82 at number 39 is Infernax. Came out on all consoles on February 14th. Bloody, gory 2D slasher adventure. Supposedly very, very good. I do have it. It's on my backlog to play. I do want to check that out. Also at 82 at number 38, Atelier Sophie 2, The Alchemist and the Mysterious Dream. Atelier franchise is something that has completely passed me by, so anyone who was a fan of that probably knows how good this is. I am just not that person. At number 37, 83 aggregate, God of Protector's Card of Darkness. No idea what that is, but maybe we'll check that out later. One more at 83 again, at number 36, Triangle Strategy. Honestly thought this might be a little higher, considering how touted it was when it launched. But 83 is still very good as an average score, especially when the number of critics who reviewed it for the website is 101. So having 101 critics registered on this website for Triangle Strategy and averaging at 83 is excellent stuff. I do. That's definitely on my backlog. Might be towards the top of my backlog as well, because I love that type of game. Would like to give that a shot at some point. 35, Green Hell VR sits at 83. Green Hell is a survival game where you're basically in a place like the Amazon, if not the Amazon itself, and you're fending off, wild animals and natives and stuff like that. In VR, it's probably a little more harrowing, but I have heard of it in basic first person. On Steam is where I first saw it, so I'm curious how that will work out in VR, but very good VR game for Oculus fans out there at number 35. Number 34, Pokemon Legends Arceus. This is low to me. I feel like I expected this to be at least top 20, but here we are at number 34, tied 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different games also at 84, and it's at the bottom of that list. So it not only is it number 84, but it's the closest to 83, if that makes sense, because they're average scores. It's only showing me the 84, but it's probably like 84.327, whatever the decimal is. So Pokemon Legends Arceus has the lowest decimal score of all the games that are at 84. That's, wow. I mean, for as revolutionary as the format of Arceus seems to be as far as Pokemon fans are concerned, that just seems a little low. So I'll have to look into why that's happening. I am playing that game. I do enjoy it very, very much. It's earned every positive review that it's gotten. But yeah, just a little low. I expected that a little more, a little higher in the list. Tentacular, number 33, also at 84, PC and Oculus on March 24th. No idea what that is, so we'll move on. Moss Book 2, PSVR at number 32, also averaging an 84. Came out March 31st. I love Moss. I love it. I love it. It's the best VR game I've ever played, and I mean that. There are great VR games, don't get me wrong, but Moss, to me, is the best use of the medium when you just want to sit and play a game in VR. So you're not terribly active. It's not one of those exercise games, but you do the way you can look around and check out the environment before you go on it, and the way the controller fits in. Excellent game. If you have the PSVR or Oculus, Oculus I don't think is out yet. Moss Book 2 I don't think is out yet for Oculus. I think it was just recently announced to be coming soon. But Moss Book 2 for PSVR now, Oculus when it comes out. I believe this summer sometime. Not exactly sure when. Citizen Sleeper at number 31, also at averaging 84. This is out on Xbox Series X and S, Xbox One, Switch, and PC. Came out May the 5th. Came out to a lot of aplomb. I don't know why I said that wrong. From the indie scene, the indie gamer scene. Apparently, it's a very, very good game. It is for those curious, I can click the link here and take a look at it. It is where are we here? Apparently, it's a narrative adventure sort of game where you're playing through. I don't want to call it point and click, but it's a narrative adventure, like life sim RPG, something going on there. Apparently, it's super, super good, and it's one that I do want to check out because the reviews that I was reading, my interests were piqued. So that might be one to keep on your radar as well. Number 30, Mother Gunship Forge, PC, Oculus, and Vive. Sounds like a VR game. A recent VR game, June 15th. Averaging 84 is pretty impressive, but again, I'm not familiar with that one as my VR is not really up to snuff at the moment. Number 29, releasing on all consoles on May 27th, Arcade Spirit, the New Challengers. I have not heard of this one. Only has 7 reviews, and that's why it's averaging 84, because only 4 of them are scored. I guess that makes sense. From Fiction Factory Games and P-Cube. Well, if four sites reviewed it and they liked it, maybe I'll give it a shot. We'll see about that. Symphony of War, the Nephilim Saga, also at number 84. This also has 7 reviews. These are all scored. This is a PC-only game, so maybe check it out on Steam or Epic Game Store, depending on what you use. Number 27, the first 85 on the list, Kirby and the Forgotten Land, coming in at number 27. This is one that I am not surprised has done very well. It takes Kirby and puts it in a whole new light. The 3D open world style game supposedly fits very, very well. This is one that I also did miss. But this is the one I want to rectify very, very soon. I know I've said that a couple of times, but Kirby and the Forgotten Land. I love Kirby games. I love open world adventure games, especially Nintendo's version of them. So I feel like this is one that would be right up my alley. Number 26, averaging 85, is Floppy Nights, reviewed by 10 websites, averaging an 85. Looks like it combines card game and turn-based tactics to create an experience that demands to be played, according to God is a Geek, and it's on Game Pass now. So if you have Game Pass, free download, go check it out. Another VR game comes in at number 25, averaging an 85. That's Wanderer. And then it came out February 27th. And then another big one at number 24, averaging 85, Tunic, which launched March 16th, the isometric RPG starring the cutie little fox, and apparently you can change his colors. I didn't realize that, but I saw that in the SGDQ run. SGDQ happening this week. Excellent run for Tunic if you haven't seen that already. And, that game just looks more and more beautiful every time I see it. This is another one that I want. This one I actually loaded up at the title screen, but then I had to stop playing games and go do something else. I'm really, really upset, and I haven't been able to get back to it yet, so hopefully soon. Number 23 at 86, Ollie Ollie World, the open world skating game. Very, very good too. Will You Snail at number 22. Number 86, I've not heard of that one. Again, low reviews. Looks like it's a platformer of some kind. Interesting. Number 21, Final Fantasy VI Pixel Remaster, averaging at 86. That's interesting. Pixel remasters were long reviled. Now it sounds like they're pretty good. Total War Warhammer 3 coming in at number 20, 86. AI The Somnium Files Nirvana Initiative, also at 86, comes in at number 19. Number 18 is Retro Bowl for the Switch. I know Retro Bowl was a very popular mobile game, so seeing it on the Switch and doing well is pretty cool. Number 17, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge. That's a great one. Love every second of that. Deserves every bit of the 87 average that it has. Definitely check that out if you have not done so already. Newest game on this list came out today, June the 30th, as I record this, averaging an 87. That's Cuphead, the delicious last course. No surprise there that more Cuphead is good Cuphead. I'm going to try and load that up as soon as possible. Number 15, 87, we just spoke about Ollie World, but its first DLC, or expansion, I should say, Void Riders, averaged 1 point better than the original game itself. That's interesting. Number 87, Gran Turismo 7, the PlayStation exclusive racer, still impressing people. Launched back in March 4th. Number 13, Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak, also launching today or yesterday for PC and Switch, averaging 87. A good Monster Hunter game. Call me surprised. Strange Horticulture on PC at number 12, averaging an 88. Not sure what's going on with this one. Have not heard of it. 9 critic reviews. Not many people have jumped on this bandwagon either. It sounds like it's a detective game. Mysteries, puzzles, and intrigue, according to PC Gamer. That sounds like it's up my alley. May have to look into that one. Uncharted Legacy of Thieves collection. Interesting to see a collection of games so high, but it averaged an 88. So there it is. Came out January 28th. Also averaging 88, cracked into the top 10 here. Destiny 2, The Witch Queen. Apparently one of the most successful Destiny 2 expansions of all time. I have not played Destiny 2 in a while. Actually, I haven't played Destiny 2 at all. I haven't played Destiny 1 in a while, so I would need some serious catch-up if I was going to get back into that. Number 9, averaging 88, Freshly Frosted from the Quantum Astrophysics Guild. 7 reviewers, all really very much loving this. Looks like it's a fantastic puzzle game having to do with donuts. So if I want to stay not hungry, I probably shouldn't play it. But the fact that it's in the top 10 is definitely worth checking out. Another 88 at number 8, Horizon Forbidden West. No surprise there. 89 average at number 7, Rogue Legacy 2. That's interesting. Rogue Legacy is a very, very fun game. I have not played the sequel yet. It's been out since April 28th, so about 2 months. But that's one that I want to check out too. Not for Broadcast at number 6, 10 critic reviews there. Apparently this falls into the Papers, Please sort of narrative puzzle game. So if you like Papers, Please, you'll like Not for Broadcast. And now we get into the top 5 best games of the year so far, according to OpenCritic. Neon White, another recent game, June 15th. Apparently a fantastic action shooter platformer, perfect for speedrunners, but also perfect for people who just want to, some fast action in their games. Number 4, also at a 90 average, the Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe. Stanley Parable, very, very popular game. Every time it seems to be coming out with a, remastered edition or a deluxe edition, it just adds more story to it. So it's not like you're just putting out the same game over and over again, which I appreciate. Number 3, with a 91 average, the bronze for the first half of the year goes to Norco from Geography of Robots and Raw Fury, averaging a 91 average. Like I said, this is another detective sort of game. This one was reviewed by 21 critics, including GameSpot, Game Informer, Destructoid. It seems to be a narrative-driven sort of game that, according to Richard Wakeling at GameSpot, weaves a compelling and utterly wonderful story that's dark, beautiful, evocative, and distinctly human. Jason Guisau, I hope I say that right, from Game Informer says, I've never played a game like Norco, which elegantly celebrates and admonishes its cultural roots while simultaneously chronicling a strange doomsday scenario. So that might be one, if you like a good story to be told to you, that's one to go with there. Number 2 is actually an expansion, a DLC, averaging 93. That's Dead Cells, The Queen and the Sea. And if you ever played Dead Cells, obviously any expansions are going to be very good. Kind of surprising that it's that good, but still pretty cool. And the number 1 at 95, averaging Elden Ring. Was there any doubt what was first? The game completely took people by storm. It really did. When it first launched in February, it became the talk of all social media for weeks, with people, finding stuff and making characters and stuff like that. So I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised it's the top thing. And it probably will stay the top thing for the rest of the year and win all the Game of the Year awards, and it'll deserve it because, when the game's good, it's really good. So that's your top 40 games from Open Critic so far this year. If you want to check those out, plus the top 40 on Metacritic, you just go to their website and sort by all platforms. I would have used Metacritic for this, but the problem is all three of their top 3 games were Elden Ring. One for PlayStation, one for Xbox, and one for PC. That's silly. Why not just put all the games together, all the platforms together in one major average like Open Critic did? So that's what I went with here. But yeah, lots of games have come out so far this year. There are a few that have released that did not make that list that I think are worthy of mention. Windjammers 2 being one of them. Lost Ark is apparently a very good MMORPG. If you like MMORPGs, there was a lot of talk about that in the beginning of the year. Shadow Warrior 3 is a lot of fun if you like just bloody, gory action every once in a while. Stranger of Paradise, Final Fantasy Origin, just a very unique way to check out Final Fantasy, to do something different with that franchise. And the list goes on. There's a ton of games that came out. Nintendo Switch Sports, Trek to Yomi, This War of Mine Final Cut, if you haven't played that yet. Lots of gaming to do and lots of gaming to be had getting into the second half of the year. But first I want to talk about one of the big events that happened this year. Obviously, that has to be mergers and acquisitions. M&A was humongous at the beginning of the year, starting with Take-Two Interactive, who owns 2K and Rockstar and all those studios, acquired mobile dev Zynga for $12.7 billion. That was a huge one. And then the next week, on the 18th of January, Microsoft shook the world by saying they were acquiring Activision Blizzard for $68.7 billion. They were buying the House of Warcraft and Diablo and Overwatch and Call of Duty and more franchises than I can shake a stick at. Candy Crush is involved in there too, because King's in there as well. And then a couple weeks later, Sony said they were buying Bungie. And the same day, to a lesser extent, New York Times bought Wordle. It was an absolutely bonkers set of mergers and acquisitions that's still sort of going on, or has gone on throughout the year. Like Embracer Group, which is becoming bigger and bigger and bigger as the days go on, acquired Dark Horse, like Dark Horse Comics and Dark Horse Entertainment. Epic Games acquired the music company Bandcamp. It's just been crazy how many companies have been bought by other companies. It's just absolutely nuts. So I expect that to continue throughout the latter half of the year. I'm sure we'll hear some big things between now and December. I don't know that they'll be on the same level as Microsoft buying Activision, but still, I expect some trees to be shaken by the time the end of the year has hit. So let's look ahead to the biggest releases for the rest of the year. Summertime has some decent games coming, but not a whole lot going on as far as like major titles. The previously mentioned AI The Somnium Files Nirvana initiative, which has already been reviewed and reviewing very well, that comes out on July the 8th, so we still have a little bit of time before that launches. Though it did already launch on Switch, PS4, and Xbox One, which is where those reviews came from. So July the 8th, that might be it's the Europe date, excuse me. That is the Europe date. So if you're listening from Europe, your time with AI The Somnium Files is coming. Rune Factory 5 is going to come out for PC soon. We also have As Dusk Falls, that really cool narrative adventure from the Xbox and Bethesda conference. That looks very cool. Live Alive, I'm not sure how they want that pronounced, but the Square Enix RPG from the Super Nintendo era that's getting the Octopath treatment coming out towards the end of July. Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is a huge one, same day as Digimon Survive. Digimon Survive, if you haven't been paying attention, that game's been announced forever, and it just is not... people thought it was never coming out, but then here it comes at the end of July. Spider-Man, the PS4 exclusive, comes to PC on August 12th. Madden 23 is in there for the football players. Saints Row is end of August. Soul Hackers 2 and Pac-Man World Repack. The list just keeps ongoing. September now we're into. We have Lord of the Rings Gollum, Last of Us Part 1, September 1st and 2nd, respectively. Splatoon 3 on September the 9th. Metal Hellsinger is due on September 15th. Excuse me. Tunic, again, coming to PS4 and PS5 at the end of September for the players that haven't played that yet. And then October, Marvel's Midnight Suns, Plague Tale Requiem, Mario & Rabbids Sparks of Hope, Persona 5 Royal coming to all consoles, Scorn, Gotham Knights, Star Ocean the Divine Force, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, Resident Evil Reverse, and the DLC and the Gold Edition with the DLC for Resident Evil 8. Sons of the Forest is due in October. And in November, we have Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, Pentiment, Harvestella, Siberia the World Before, and then December is going to close out strong with the Callisto Protocol, Hello Neighbor 2, Dragon Quest Treasures, and whatever else hasn't been announced yet. It just keeps coming. It's going to be a heck of a year. 2022 has already been a great year, and it's just going to keep on going until January 1st, 2023, when we start it all over again on New Year's Day. And with that, we are at the end of Cheesesteaks and Controllers episode number 103, presented by Fox PHL The Gambler, 102.5 FM, 1480 AM, and iHeart Radio. This is Jason Finelli, your esports and gaming insider for Fox PHL The Gambler, hoping that you have a fantastic holiday weekend. July 4th coming up this Monday. Hope you all are doing something nice, whether it's barbecuing with your family or visiting with friends or whatever it is that you're going to do. Just have a nice, relaxing extra day off to enjoy the holiday. So, yes, I hope you have a fantastic weekend. I hope you have an even better week right behind it. And I will not be back next week. I am on vacation, so there will probably be a clip show or a best of that will play, that will be uploaded to the feed for you. And then we will come back the week after with the latest and greatest in all things video games and esports. Goodbye, everybody.